All right, I'm back to talk about movies, and by God, I ran the gamut this last week because we're going to talk about quite a range of things. I figure I'm probably just going to jump right into it. I haven't prepared anything other than having the wiki pages and the IMDb pages up for the movies, just to jog my memory, I guess. So we're going to talk about 3 more films today, and the goal is after this recording goes out, that I'll be caught up with everything, and I'll be able to release now 1 episode of this show per week and dedicate that episode to 1 movie, and ideally a new release movie. I suppose there could be a week where there's no new release movies. Wow, that doesn't sound right. I'll see dog shit. I'm not afraid to see dog shit, as will be determined by the first movie I talk about today. And then once I'm able to spend more time talking about 1 singular new release, I'd love to dive deeper into it and all the filmmakers involved. But as of now, for this 3rd installment of an attempt at getting this off the ground, we're going to keep it brief for these movies. And I don't want to go too in depth about multiple movies. So let's just hop right into it, I guess. I'm excited to say, now that I'm looking at my list here, that I'm going to be talking about the movies in, spoiler alert, ascending order in terms of quality, I guess. So the first movie I'm going to talk about today that I saw probably about a week and a half ago at this point is the 2026 film Mercy. This is the new film from Timur Bekmambetov, who, if you listen to Broken Reel at all, the other show that I host and talk about movies with other people with, Timur, I'll just refer to him as Timur, at the risk of butchering his last name or having to say it because it's like 10 syllables every time. But Timur has come up on the show previously because Graham mistook him for Tim Burton, I guess because both of their names start with Tim and their last name starts with B. When Graham, I think, brought up Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter in his Thanksgiving movie conversation because he has a tall hat and pilgrims wear tall hats and pilgrims are associated with Thanksgiving. Anyway, Timur is the creative behind a few movies, a fair amount of them I haven't heard of, to be frank. But the first one I know is 2008's Wanted, which, if I remember correctly, starred Angelina Jolie, maybe a couple other people. Fuck it. I'll just look it up. We're going on a journey. Angelina Jolie, definitely. James McAvoy, that's right. Morgan Freeman, I assume he's the old wise guy who runs the bullet curving school. Stars James McAvoy. Angelina Jolie's bottom billed. She probably had and a featuring credit. Either way, he's the creative behind that genius movie, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, as I spoke about before. He has a lot of series under his belt that he wrote and directed. A movie called Night Watch, directly followed by a movie called Day Watch, which I assume are related in some kind. He also just directed a movie called Yolki, 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 in 2010, Russian comedy film. It is the most It is the most successful non-animated film franchise in Russia. Interesting. Okay. So 2010, Yolki. 2011, wrote and produced Yolki 2, but did not direct it. 2014, you got Yolki 1914. He returns as a director on. 2016, Yolki 5, directed and produced. 2016's Ben-Hur. Okay. I didn't realize that movie warranted a remake. A couple other movies and Mercy. So I was reading something a little bit earlier too that I just want to talk about. Oh, is it not on here? Wanted. Maybe he didn't direct it. From what I was reading is that Timur is also known for coining or championing what people are calling this screen life genre or screen life films. This includes films like Unfriended, Searching, Profile, and it's the 2025's War of the Worlds that I know everybody loved. Are essentially these movies that take place almost exclusively on screens or on phones or on tablets or on social media platforms, websites, things of that nature. A lot of those movies aren't good. I think the original, Searching, the one with John Cho, about his daughter going missing and him tracking her stuff via social media to find her. That was an okay film. And then I went to go see, I think the sequel Missing came out and it was not as exciting. But if you've heard of Searching or you know anything about it, Mercy is essentially just that movie, just copy pasted with a couple different characters and different professions. So let's jump into Mercy. And if you're unfamiliar with it, here's a synopsis of the movie. Set in the near future, a detective accused of murdering his wife has 90 minutes to prove his innocence to an advanced AI judge. I will say a few things about this movie. It utilizes real time, which I always think is pretty fun in movies and can be alarmingly effective. One movie that I really enjoyed recently that played out in real time was Saturday Night. Is that movie that was essentially 90 minutes long, and it was about the 90 minutes leading up to the very first episode of Saturday Night Live, and it's mostly shot in one take for the most part, and that kind of tense, hectic chaos, all of those things kind of come. They're greater than some of its parts. So like the chaotic nature of behind the scenes television, not being able to catch a break in the scene because the camera's never cutting, and it being playing out in real time. It all delivers like a really good, tense kind of movie. Now, Saturday Night isn't necessarily a thriller, but it is thrilling, I would say. And I think that they try to capture that concept and put it in this movie, Mercy, which is a thrilling subject about like that searching movie featuring John Cho, not directed by Timur, but one of the screen life genres, is essentially Chris Pratt trying to solve his wife's murder from the inside of what is called Mercy Court in this movie, which is essentially him on trial versus an AI judge played by Rebecca Ferguson, and he has 90 minutes to prove his innocence, and which is actually kind of great too, because the movie's like 97 minutes or something like that. So you sit down and you get a very, very brief intro to the movie, and within those 5 to 7 minutes, they explain everything that's happening, and then Rebecca Ferguson says to Chris Pratt, "You now have 90 minutes to prove your innocence," and then we're off to the races. I will give it that fact that it's told in real time, so you know exactly how close you are to the end of the movie, as well as the fact that it's just a crime thriller. I'll give it a plus for that. I like both of those things. I didn't like this movie. It's not very good at all. It's extremely ugly. It's extremely ugly when we talk about these screen life movies. The digital presence of these screens that are superimposed or created and edited into the film, where real life actors like Chris Pratt are interacting with them, looking at them, it's either still not there, or they got to figure something else out with it. You know, in the Searching movie, which I might be referring to because it's pretty much the only other movie in this screen life genre that I've seen, there's a lot of people looking at phones, and there's a lot of screen capture on devices, and there's a lot of just like you on the viewer on the other end of just like a FaceTime call and someone looking into a camera. Like that kind of feels like it has a real life application to some degree, because you experience all that stuff in real life. Now, this movie, though, is set in this near future Los Angeles, where Chris Pratt is in this executioner's chair, basically, and billions of screens and charts and social media pages and, you know, like phone apps for calling someone or Instagram pages or whatever are just appearing out of thin air. So like we're just supposed to accept the fact that this is the future. None of this technology has been invented yet. But then what's weird is that it's an AI judge, because AI is taking the world by storm right now, is very much a real thing. But then there are also things like this entire room that he's in, which is basically made of lasers, so it can project 3D images in real time, and also has things like I don't know what's called them, motorbike copters. It's essentially just like a motorcycle with it's like an ATV if it was a hovercraft, and the police just have them at their disposal. So it's like, but it's not like Star Wars, it's not like Coruscant, where like it's just like flying cars everywhere. It's just that. So near future Los Angeles. Rebecca Ferguson's in this movie. I don't know fucking why. I love watching her in movies, and I really enjoy her performances in movies. She's in the Dune movies. She's in some of the Mission Impossible movies. She's a good actress. I don't know why she's in this movie. And she chooses to play, but she was cast as an artificial being where she basically gets to do nothing except look like Rebecca Ferguson and have nefarious lighting on her face the entire time, and just talks like essentially a robot. You know, this movie's a nightmare. It's so ugly. Anyway, I'm looking at a couple of the other credits here. Written by Marco Van Bell, never heard of the guy. Produced by Charles Roven. Charles Roven, who I think is a co-founder of Atlas Entertainment. Atlas Entertainment also produced a bunch of superhero movies, probably most notably the Dark Knight trilogy, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, so on and so forth. This movie is also, produced and distributed by Amazon MGM. So if you aren't able to catch it in theaters, it'll show up on Prime Video any day now, I'm sure. This is just not a good movie. And I gotta be honest, I don't particularly love Chris Pratt. I think he's funny. I think he can do funny. But this role wasn't for him. And you know what? Well, else though, I feel like he can exude a certain amount of authority. I feel like I would be pretty convinced if he was a cop, like a beat cop. But in this, he's a detective, and he's like a well-respected, well-lauded detective in the LAPD. So I feel like not that he's the smartest guy in the room kind of vibe, but we're supposed to understand that he's more than just like a beat cop, you know? That is to say that he doesn't have his vices and his downfalls in the movie. His character is an alcoholic. His character's name also Chris, so I could just refer to him as Chris. His character's an alcoholic, has, you know, a few detractors like many policemen in stories like this do. And therefore he had it out with his wife, and then his wife ends up dead. He wakes up in Mercy Court, and then the movie, you know, picks up from there, and he has to solve the murder. He's 90 minutes to solve the murder using every single piece of technology at his disposal. The movie explains to us that the AI judge, played by Rebecca Ferguson, and Mercy Court, which Chris Pratt's character, Chris, was a proponent of. So they have access to this thing called the municipal cloud. So basically it's like a governed, you know, cloud-based system where everybody's online lives and is monitored 24/7. So that's kind of the crux and how he's able to, you know, use this technology to solve, or attempt to solve, the murder, rather. I don't know. I guess this is out of theaters. It opened on January 23rd. Date of recording right now is February 2nd. Groundhog Day. Represent. So I guess it's out of theaters now, because it looks like the budget of this movie is reported to be about 60 million, and the box office was 41 million. Sounds about right. I guess at this point, I might dip into spoilers a little bit to finish up the conversation about the movie. So like I said earlier, Chris Pratt's character has a drinking problem, an alcohol problem. And so he's trying to work things out with his wife. He's going to AA and is like sober for a year or longer. And he gets a sponsor from AA. So it turns out that Chris Pratt, his character, who is a proponent of this Mercy Court, they finally put away like their first suspect who was accused of a murder. And essentially you get put in Mercy Court, and then you're proven guilty. You're presumed guilty until proven innocent. And I guess everybody gets a treatment. I don't know if everybody gets the same treatment of you have 90 minutes to use the municipal cloud to prove your innocence or what. But this guy got put into Mercy Court, and then essentially was framed and was executed. And so that was like the selling point of like, look, Mercy Court works. It puts away killers. Come to find out that Chris Pratt's AA sponsor was like maybe not the long lost brother, but an adopted brother. Or they were biological brothers and were adopted separately. But he was the biological brother of this man that they put away. And apparently, according to his AA sponsor, he was wrongly accused. So his AA sponsor is basically secretly hatching a plan the entire time he knows Chris's character to murder his wife, kidnap his daughter, and then run a tractor trailer full of explosives into the Mercy Court building while Chris Pratt's character is there, effectively blowing it up, ending the Mercy program, literally killing every single person in Chris Pratt's family and himself. And I guess that's supposed to mean he gets justice for his brother who was killed in Mercy Court. Spoiler alert, that doesn't happen. And instead, Chris Pratt proves his innocence in like the final 5 minutes of the movie. He's let out of the executioner's chair, runs down into the lobby of this Mercy Court building to meet his AA sponsor and kidnapper, who has his daughter. Wife is dead. And they essentially talk him off the ledge, because the sponsor is going to blow the shit up, kill his daughter, and all that fun stuff. Rebecca Ferguson, the AI, gives him the chance to prove his brother's case that he was innocent. And he makes a convincing enough argument, gives him an alibi, and then come to find out that Chris Pratt's partner, who was only in like 3 scenes in the movie, 3 fractions of scenes in the movie earlier, who like stood by Chris's character the whole time and helped him out a lot and, you know, pushed him to do things, I guess. It was the partner of him after his original partner died, which is why Chris Pratt started drinking in the first place. So she kind of came to lift him up in the time of need professionally. Turns out she planted evidence on the guy, just like that. And her excuse is, we needed Mercy Court to work. We needed the people to see that it could work. So she planted evidence on this guy. He was wrongly accused, was killed. And all of this starts the snowball of the biological brother becoming his AA sponsor, murdering his wife, and then hatching this entire harebrained scheme to basically ruin his life and everything that he stands for. It's unbelievable that at the end of this movie, and this is not an original thought, this is something that I read, but it's unbelievable at the end of this movie that the female African-American police officer is the one thrown under the bus. And the entire time, this movie is like championing AI, I guess. It's supposed to be that this is for the most part of this movie, AI is the future, and this is how we're going to run our city and our police force, is by using AI to determine whether or not these people should live or die. Like, there's no gray area. It's just like, well, if you can convince a computer, then you must be innocent. And then at the end of the movie, I'm going to pull up the quote here because it's fucking crazy. The final line of the movie, after Chris Pratt saves the day and is hugging his daughter, and Rebecca Ferguson's AI character has allowed the AA sponsor to live, even though he is guilty of doing a bunch of bad things, but he proved the innocence of his brother. And after Chris Pratt takes the badge and the gun of his partner who planted the evidence on him, the AI judge says, "Chris, what have we done?" Chris Pratt responds with, "We just did what we're programmed to do, human or AI. We all make mistakes and we learn." The AI responds, "Yes, we do." Like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is this? This movie feels like it champions AI, and then the AI is the bad guy, and then it all just kind of comes out in the wash and is like, well, we all make mistakes, and also AI makes mistakes too. So I don't know. This didn't feel like anything happened other than 100 minutes of my time passed. I thought this movie was terrible. I thought this movie was genuinely bad. And if it is still in theaters, you shouldn't go spend money on it. And if it comes to Amazon Prime Video in a couple weeks, I still wouldn't recommend watching it. There are a literal million other crime thrilling movies out there. And if the evidence of these screen life genre movies are not enough, like this movie and like the 2025 War of the Worlds movie starring Ice Cube that has like become a meme overnight, and these movies like Unfriended and Searching, which, like, again, I'll admit was like okay, like, this is just not a good translation. This stuff does not translate to film right now, period. If it ever will, I don't know, but it's just not good. It's just not good, and this was a bad movie. So I'm gonna stop talking about it. We're gonna talk about another movie now. This is gonna be exciting. The next movie we're gonna talk about is Sam Raimi's Send Help. So this is the new Sam Raimi movie, as previously mentioned, starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, who, admittedly, I don't know anything about Dylan O'Brien. Let me read you the synopsis real quick. Actually, for the uninitiated, Sam Raimi, legendary filmmaker, what is it? He's 66 years old right now and has been making films since the early 80s. He is the creator of the Evil Dead franchise, specifically wrote and direct Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness. The Evil Dead franchise has gone on to be sequelized and spun off and all that stuff by other people. I think he's probably executive produced most of them. But he also did the the early 2000s Spider-Man trilogy, starring Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst. A couple other things that people probably know him from is The Gift, or Drag Me to Hell, or maybe even more so, specifically the Doctor Strange sequel, Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness, and Send Help. So this guy's kind of a horror icon if you don't know anything about him. Horror comedy icon, one might even say. So this is the new Sam Raimi movie. He did not write it. It was written by a duo of people by the names of Damian Shannon and Mark Swift, who don't have a lot of writing credits, but they have some notable ones, namely Freddy vs. Jason, Shark Tale, Friday the 13th, the 2009 version or reboot, Baywatch, the 2017 version or reboot, and then Send Help in 2026. So interesting history there. Let me read the synopsis of Send Help. An employee and her insufferable boss become stranded on a deserted island, the only survivors of a plane crash. Here, they must overcome past grievances and work together to make it out alive. So this movie was really fun. And it was specifically, for me, really fun in the first act. It started to peter out a little bit, and I wasn't in love with the entire thing as a whole. But I will not lie, when my not sold out, but packed theater on a Saturday, like, pre-screening event at my local AMC was kind of in stitches. This movie was so funny and incredibly entertaining. Sam Raimi is fantastic at combining those two qualities. There was a lot of kind of like uncomfortable humor, or just dry humor, if you will. Again, especially in the first act, while the kind of dynamic between the two characters is still kind of being figured out after they've crash landed on the island. Because the douchebag boss is still thinking he's in charge, even though he's like wounded and can't walk and can't fend for himself and can't take care of himself at all. Whereas Rachel McAdams' character, we come to find out like very early on that she is like obsessed with Survivor, basically. And right at the beginning of the movie, you know, we basically get the introductions of the two characters in the office. We find out that she was up for like a vice president role or something when Dylan O'Brien's character's father ran the company. And then he passed away. Dylan O'Brien took it over and then immediately just pulled the bro card, I guess, or whatever, and just like promoted his boy to VP or senior VP or whatever. And Rachel McAdams, who is this incredibly gifted, hardworking, also quiet, kind of timid employee, was essentially expecting that and was promised that, if I recall correctly, by the character's father before he left. And then she doesn't get it, so she's upset. But they take her on the plane to, I don't even remember where they're going, like Thailand or something, or they crash outside Thailand. I can't remember where they're going. Yeah, they're going to Thailand. He was like, I'll make it up to you and you can come with us on this big merger, you know? So she's on the plane, the private jet, with the boys and the boy posse, and they start making fun of her essentially because they're watching videos. They found these videos of her doing like Survivor tryout videos, you know? And they're laughing at her, and she's just like, I can't believe this is my life right now. And then out of nowhere, the jet just explodes, and we get our first kind of treat, little Sam Raimi treat, with people's bodies flying out of the side of a jet, people being like hanging from their ties outside the window, smashing up against the window of the plane. You know, them hanging onto the seat for dear life, Rachel McAdams' seat for dear life, and also like trying to basically give me your seat, you know, and she stabs him with a fork or something. Crazy, like absurd humor, almost out the gate. But in a horrific, you know, scenario. This movie is like part workplace comedy, but also just part like survival horror. And those two things lend themselves really well to each other, I guess I should say. And with Sam Raimi behind the wheel, it makes sense as to why this movie appears to be working and appears to be, you know, being well received, I guess I should say. To wrap up my thoughts on it, though, I personally had a lot of fun in the first, I'd say, 30 to 45 minutes, and it kind of just petered out. Not trying to, you know, I love Sam Raimi, and I love the Evil Dead franchise, and I love the early Spider-Man. I love everything that he does. I just felt, first of all, specifics. Things I love about the Evil Dead franchise. They were made in the 80s, and practical effects and kind of the campiness that goes along with maybe what you would even call bad practical effects are still endearing to a degree. And this movie has a handful, I'll say, of digital effects, special effects. There's an entire scene where Rachel McAdams fights a fake boar as they're rummaging for food. And it's just not, it just takes me out of it, you know? And she's having a great time. Rachel McAdams kills it in this movie. And she is just full, Dylan O'Brien as well, both of them fully committing to this movie, which is fantastic for viewers. But in the scenes where she's fighting the boar and certain little, I don't know, there's like bugs crawling around, and there's spoilers ahead, but there's a few things that are just completely unrealistic, and the backdrop of these visual effects on top of practical effects, it's just not very good. This is a similar but different complaint, different side of the same coin I had with Del Toro's Frankenstein last year, is that like he's so good at production design and so good at making me feel immersed in his worlds. But when I watch Frankenstein, it's like you watch the first scene and you're just like, this movie is painfully taking place on a soundstage somewhere. Like, what the hell? This doesn't have that problem. It just has the problem of I'm immersed because of everything that is so practical. And then the VFX just stand out and they're just not very good. I feel like, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's a problem that I wish people would solve in a different way. It's almost like I wish VFX didn't exist for certain creatives, maybe. I feel like Sam Raimi has the creativity to still do something that would be extremely appealing and entertaining in a way that doesn't revolve around relying on computer generated imagery, you know? Besides the VFX that I don't love. Oh, also the shot at the end of the movie. There's like a her driving on a big highway. Just terrible. I guess I kind of understand how people feel about I don't know what to call it, Easter eggs in movies. I guess I don't know, not Easter eggs, but like after there's a certain point in the movie, again for me, where after I'm already in the world and I'm enjoying what's happening, I'm now taken out of it by things like the VFX and by things like Sam Raimi just putting his kind of stamp on it. There's a pretty jarring dream sequence that ends in like a jump scare and like a crash zoom on a person's face with disgusting what looks like practical effects on it, but it just feels so out of place. And there's a very specific piece of imagery that comes in like the beginning of the third act, where Dylan O'Brien's character sees something and it provides him with some information, and he kind of goes off the rails. And the thing that he sees is essentially just like a signature Sam Raimi thing, you know? So it's like, what are you in it for? You know, are you in it for Sam Raimi to imprint every single bit of his being into this movie? And here's a way to put it. I don't need this movie to be The Evil Dead, you know? And yet it somehow feels like it, and not in a way that I'm watching this movie and it's by the guy that did The Evil Dead. It's like saying it's the Evil Dead guy's movie versus the guy who did The Evil Dead's movie. I don't know if that makes sense. That's the best way I can articulate it right now. I guess maybe it'd be easier to just get into spoilers. Like I said, there's a dream sequence that has like a jump scare in it. Very Sam Raimi. Dylan O'Brien's character sees the hand of his fiance buried in the sand, and her hand is the only thing exposed from the sand and up in like this contorted, disgusting looking way as a baby CGI boar is like gnawing on it. These are things that are just like Sam Raimi stereotypes. And I feel like maybe they're just forced into this movie just for it to just be like, don't forget this is a Sam Raimi movie. Or like maybe he was just like, I need to crash zoom in on an ugly person's face and I need to have the hand coming out of the ground, you know? I just thought it was a little much, I guess. So after the first act, which I really enjoyed, and we are now like deep into the movie, the relationship starts to kind of evolve between the two characters, and it can be entertaining, but it's a lot of both of the characters being despicable, and who can be more despicable than the other. A lot of backstabbing and a lot of manipulation, but I really feel like you see this movie, Rachel McAdams top billed, you know, she's the timid, very deserving employee who gets shafted at the beginning of the movie. Like, you feel like it's probably pretty obvious that she's going to come out the victor in this battle of wills, you know? And she does. She becomes CEO of some company that she creates, writes a book about her struggles and being deserted on the island, and ends up taking up golf, because that was the one thing that Dylan O'Brien's character was like, you don't even golf. How are you supposed to be my VP? How are you supposed to be my right hand if you're not a golfer, you know? Very much a woman breaking through the glass ceiling kind of vibes, which is not a bad thing. It's fun. It's honestly fun in this movie. I don't know why I didn't like this movie. I mean, I liked it. That's all I can say, is that I liked it. I wouldn't give it any more than that. Both of these people suck, is the thing. Both of these characters suck. You know, there are times where you are empathetic towards them when they start to kind of unravel their past and why they are the way that they are. But at the end of the day, they both suck. And it like they cannot coexist, basically. Am I missing anything big that I want to cover with this movie? I don't think so. Score by Danny Elfman. That was fun. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. I think this movie, I don't think Mercy is still in theaters. I do think Send Help is still in theaters, considering it just came out this past weekend. I'm a little confused because I saw it like a week early because it was on like a Saturday screening or something like that. This movie's definitely worth a watch. It's a fun time, and it is way funnier than I thought it was going to be, and it is intense. It is an intense watch sometimes. It is very visceral and very kind of grit your teeth kind of like feel, you know? Does it land the plane? I guess for me, not really, but it was a good enough time. I can't say I would ever tell anyone to not watch anything done by Sam Raimi. So I think if you are unfamiliar with his work, you should absolutely go see this movie. And if you like it, then you should absolutely revisit probably start with the Evil Dead series, if I'm being honest. And if you watch this movie, or if you've seen Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, or if you've seen Spider-Man, the early 2000s Spider-Man, if you've seen any of those movies and then you go back and you watch the Evil Dead, so much is going to make sense, you know? So anyway, send help. Personally didn't love it, liked it, had a good time, would recommend still. Let's move on to the final movie. This movie was kind of briefly covered on an episode of Broken Reel a few weeks back. So I'll try not to harp on it, but who knows? I'm good at rambling. I just finally got the ability to go see it. We're going to talk about Jafar Panahi's It Was Just an Accident. So this movie was released quite some time ago. Premiered at Cannes in May of 2025, and looks like started releasing around October, and I'm only getting it now. A couple of my local theaters, like the big chains, don't get a lot of these smaller or foreign movies or anything like that, but we do have like a small indie theater that's local that will get these kinds of movies typically weeks or months after their wide release. You know, this is also where you go to see some of your Netflix, well, your streaming service distributed movies. Like I saw Jay Kelly here. It Was Just an Accident. Next week is If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Week after that's The Secret Agent. So like these are all, you know, movies that are not widely available at like your local AMC for the most part, I guess I'd say. Anyway, It Was Just an Accident. Like I said, directed by Jafar Panahi, who is an Iranian filmmaker and often associated with what is called the Iranian New Wave of film. So if you've heard of something like the French New Wave, this is the Iranian New Wave. Same thing, different country. Let me read the synopsis for It Was Just an Accident. An unassuming mechanic is reminded of his time in an Iranian prison when he encounters a man he suspects to be his sadistic jailhouse captor. Panicked, he rounds up a few of his fellow ex-prisoners to confirm the man's identity. This movie blew my mind, or blew me away is maybe a little extreme, but completely undermined everything I thought I was getting into. This movie is strangely funny for that premise that I just read, and not nearly as thrilling as I thought it was going to be. It starts off pretty dark at the beginning as you're introduced to these characters and you start to kind of understand what's happening in the story. But like the synopsis explains, after the man sees him and then starts to round up the ex-prisoners to confirm his identity, it's essentially a comedy. It's black comedy. The humor in it is not conventional humor, but it's a lot of humor at the expense of others. It's a lot of dark humor, tragic, if you will, and really kind of just silly, and it plays lighthearted. But the thing is, the stakes of the movie are incredibly high because we're talking about essentially a man's life, and I don't think I'm spoiling any of that when I say this, because if you've seen the trailer, he sees this man in the beginning of the movie, and within 10 minutes of the film starting, maybe 15, this guy who sees his questionable jailhouse captor, he has kidnapped him, handcuffed him, and thrown him in a ditch and is burying him alive. Like, it's fucking crazy. And if this man, Vahid Mobaseri, I believe is how you pronounce his name, if he was a little less empathetic, a little more decisive, I don't know. Roll credits. Movie's over in 15 minutes. But because he can't confirm his identity, he has to be sure before he takes the plunge into essentially taking a man's life, because this man made his life and so many others' lives hell for months or years. When I was talking to Slaughter about this movie, he was the one that brought it up on the episode of Broken Reel. I said to him, it felt like a twisted episode of Scooby-Doo, because by the time we're at speed in this movie, we have a group of 5 individuals, all with like significant archetypes: the angry one, the funny one, the clueless one, the smart one, etc. And it's almost like a slapstick comedy. The kind of things that they're getting into and the scenarios that they are met with, all while having this unconscious man's body in the back of a van, a windowless van. Like, fucking insane. This movie's great because it's very subversive. And it's not just great because it's subversive, although that is just a major part of it. I don't think a lot of people, could identify with one-to-one the moral dilemma of having to take someone's life and whether or not this is the right person, you know? So your mileage may vary on how relatable this movie is, but does it matter? Honestly, does it matter if the movie's relatable, if it's entertaining? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. That's what this podcast is for. We talked about this on Broken Reel a little bit, so I'm not going to get too into it. But Jafar Panahi, Iranian filmmaker, this guy is an absolute gangster because he's been making movies since like the late 80s, early 90s. The stories that he chooses to cover are often about his country and social norms or authorities and, you know, propaganda and like all of these things that end up being censored or completely shut down in some cases. And so this film in particular, and I think other films of his, well, just like filmed in secret, essentially, or filmed while he's under house arrest. One of his films, literally called This Is Not a Film, was shot, I think, while he was under house arrest, and then it had to be like exported onto a flash drive, and the flash drive had to be smuggled out of Iran into France. Like fucking crazy shit for this guy to just make a movie, you know? You would never guess it too. Watching, this didn't take me out of it at all, but knowing that this movie was filmed in secret and essentially with like a skeleton crew is crazy, because when you watch the movie, I'd say 9 times out of 10, you would never think about anything like that, because a lot of decisions that might lend itself to working with like a skeleton crew or something like that is like easily confused isn't the right word, but like could easily be seen as just like creative decisions. I mean, there's one of the final shots of this movie is just on the man who they think is their jailhouse captor while he's tied to a tree for like 15 minutes straight. And it's like, sure, is that a result of them only having a boom operator, a camera operator, director, and the talent on screen? Or is there an artistic decision behind that? You know, I think that the creative license behind those kind of decisions could easily be seen as creative decisions and not, oh, well, there was only 5 people on set that day, you know? And so it's not a detractor for the movie is what I'm trying to say. But knowing that going into it, I could see certain scenes that seemed like they were just playing out in real life, essentially. And I don't know if these were hired extras or what, but, you know, there were some scenes that were kind of appeared candid or maybe even voyeuristic to a degree of just like the Iranian people going about their day. And more than just B-roll, you know, this is some of the characters interacting with these people on busy streets, you know. So just a fun time to watch that and know that was it and be able to kind of pick out those little things. But if you didn't know that, it's not a detractor. I guess I'll get into spoiler territory for the movie now too. So the entire premise of this movie is they're trying to figure out whether or not this guy is the guy that put them through hell, and having to deal with or having to come to terms with or having to make the decision of whether or not they have it in them to take this man's life out of vengeance, or do they think that they're delivering justice? Or I'd like to watch this movie again to see if this is the case, but I don't think it does, because it wasn't extremely prevalent throughout the movie from what I recall, but it's an extremely, extremely useful tool to introduce us to an auditory aspect of the film, I guess I should say. I'm in spoiler territory now, so I don't know why I'm not like being forefront with it. This guy who they think is their jailhouse captor is nicknamed Peg Leg, and it's because he has a fake leg that has a very distinct squeak to it when he walks. So this squeak essentially haunted all of these people's lives for ever since they've been released from this prison. And that's introduced very early on in the movie. And then the character of the captor, the original captor, is drugged and locked in a box in the back of a van for the rest of the movie, essentially. So you're not hearing that, or maybe it comes up in conversation once or twice, but every time they introduce the new new member of the gang in as they're working their way through the city, to this guy says, call this girl, and then this girl is working with these 2 other guys, and then this guy is like, well, you know who would really know is that guy, and then sooner or later they've got a whole party of people trying to figure out if this is the guy or not. And every time they introduce a new character, that's Peg Leg? Are you sure that's Peg Leg? That fucking squeak, you know? So you hear it at the beginning of the movie when the character is walking through the shop, if you repair shop or garage of our main character. And that's what kind of leads him to believe that this is the guy. And then the story begins. And then you never hear it again. And it's over and done with. The group goes through just an absolute, like, what I can only describe as like a comedy of errors, or a cavalcade of ridiculous scenarios as they're trying to find out this guy's identity. One of the people, the most angry of them, who just wants to kill this guy, almost steals the van at one point and wants to take him away. They run into 2 security guards at like this rooftop parking garage that shake them down and just like make them pay to look the other way, like make them pay with a credit card on a wireless credit card machine to look the other way so that they can continue doing what they're doing, all the way to the point where the cell phone of the captor is ringing. It's his daughter, who we saw, him and his daughter and his wife in the beginning of the movie, the first people we see on screen. His daughter's freaking out because his wife fainted in the kitchen. And we know that his wife is like 9 months pregnant. So they, in good conscience, can't leave a pregnant lady passed out on her kitchen floor with a helpless, like, 7-year-old girl there crying for her daddy, calling a cell phone. So they go and investigate. They drive the wife and the child to the hospital. They have the wife laying on the box in the back of the van that her husband is currently drugged and bound in. Take her to the hospital, go through the ridiculous administrative work of trying to get this lady into a room where she can deliver her baby because she passed out. Doctor comes, helps her out, and then our main character has to pay for the cost of admitting the lady, buys his daughter like lunch or dinner or whatever, and then like the nurse that delivers the baby like expects a tip as well, so he goes out and like gets donuts for everyone, and then has to like continue asking everyone in the group for cash because he needs to tip the nurse. Like, just crazy, absolute absurd shit they're running into, and it's so fucking funny. They go through all of that, and that night the group starts to disband, all but our main character and the first girl that he reached out to. So they take the captor to like a remote location, a couple miles off the main road, tie him to a tree, and we get like the penultimate scene of the movie that I was talking about earlier, where it's essentially just a straight on shot of this guy strapped to a tree with like nothing but the red light of the brake lights of the van illuminating half of his face, and them essentially interrogating him, or like forcing him to talk, forcing him to admit that he is who he is, but not interrogating in like a sadistic way or anything like that, because that the whole point is that they are not him, you know? They could never do what he does. This scene's pretty fucking crazy. I don't know if it was all done in one take, but it looks like it could have been. Essentially them breaking down this man, eventually getting to the point where they tell him that they took care of his wife, that his newborn son is alive and well, that his daughter is at the hospital. And at that point, the captor knows that no matter what I do, no matter what I say at this point, these people are not going to kill me because that's not them. So he admits that he is Pegleg, and they freak out, justifiably so. There's some slapping, there's a lot of screaming, some crying, all of that stuff. And they ultimately cut his hands loose and drive away. And they keep him bound, they cut him from the tree. And he just says, you know, we're only X amount of miles away from this road. Just walk that way and you'll be back. And then they leave him go. And a lot of the time, the angry one in the group is talking about how they need to kill him, because if they don't kill him, this guy knows their voices. In some cases, maybe even knows the face of someone. And basically, if this guy doesn't die, he will come back to find these people and make their life a living hell. So the main characters of the film do not have what it takes to kill this man, even after he admits that he is the sadistic jailhouse captor that he was and put them through hell. And so after they leave him, we go to the final scene of the movie where the main character is moving out of his apartment and like buying a house or something. And there's a little bit of a hustle and bustle while he's, you know, moving stuff from his house to his van, working with his coworker. His mother and maybe some relatives are there, you know, just doing relative stuff. And he's kind of just standing in a room, preparing to finalize the moving of his life out of this one place to another. And in like the shot before that, you just barely see a car roll into frame and the car door shut. And if you had been paying attention earlier in the movie, you know that is the car of Pegleg. And as our main character stands in his entryway, facing away from the camera, we just hear the slow plod of Pegleg and the squeak of the prosthetic returns that we haven't heard since like the first 5 minutes of the movie. This squeak that is incredibly harrowing, according to all of these characters. The squeak that lives in their dreams and they can't get out of their heads because they were so petrified of it. And we hear the squeak again, and it slowly grows and gets louder and eventually stops. And the entire time, our main character does not turn around. He does not face the camera. He is just dead still, staring at like his stairs. And then the movie cuts to black and the credits roll. And through the credits, you do hear Pegleg walk away. And in those final 30 to 60 seconds of that film, basically all of the thrilling parts that I thought I was getting out of that movie were compressed into that one sequence, because the hair was standing up on the back of my neck. It was fucking crazy. Everything was so lighthearted and so just absolutely ridiculous all the way up until that final moment of the scene. And there's no resolution, essentially. Are we to interpret that angry guy was right and that they let him live, and so this guy essentially tracked him down? And was that a message? Was that him saying, I know who you are, I know where to find you, don't ever fuck with me again? Is he going to be this guy's shadow for the rest of his life, and he's always going to have to look over his shoulder in perpetuity? Was it just a warning? You know? Was that him saying, I know how to find you, don't fuck with me, but I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to walk away because you had the ability to kill me and you didn't? And therefore, you know, the characters at the beginning of the movie who were dead set on killing this guy because he was a sadistic asshole, they turned because at the end of the movie, they don't kill him, even though they never had it in him the whole time. But at the end of the movie, they don't kill him. And then this guy who is a sadistic jailhouse captor who Pegleg, you know, probably killed some people in his time based off of what they talk about in the movie. Does he now have a change of heart at the end of the movie? I don't know. It leaves you thinking. And it leaves you thinking, and leaves you thinking of the interpretation of the film. It leads you thinking of things like this in your own experience, and what would you have done? And based off of your personality, do you have the optimistic or the pessimistic outlook on it? It makes you want to watch it again and maybe see things you didn't pick up on. This movie is fucking awesome. And at the risk of spoiling it more, I hope that if you listen to this, as soon as you heard me say, you know, spoilers ahead, you stopped listening because you were looking forward to watching this movie, because this movie is genuinely so good. When it did, I said premiere earlier. I don't know if it actually premiered at Cannes or if it was a show that Cannes. But when it did play at Cannes, it did win Palme d'Or, which is like Best Picture at the Cannes Film Festival, essentially. It's a very prestigious award historically in cinema. It Was Just an Accident has 2 nominations at the Academy Awards this year for Best International Feature. Makes sense. Although it is representing France, because I believe it was in conjunction with a French production company. Again, because it was filmed in secret in Iran. You know, Jafar didn't really have a way to get the movie made. And Best Original Screenplay. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. We talked about Mercy. We talked about Send Help. And we talked about It Was Just an Accident. I don't know what's next. There's actually not a lot releasing this week, the week of February 2nd. I just got done my annual Groundhog Day watch and rewatch and rewatch and rewatch and rewatch for the day. I also watched a movie for the upcoming episode of Broken Reel, where we'll be talking about some of our favorite romantic comedies in honor of Valentine's Day, which is around the time that episode will come out. I think we are getting a Dracula, another adaptation of Dracula this week. I don't know if there's going to be a wide release of it, and a wide release of Pillion, which I only know the cover, but I think it's one of the Skarsgård and the guy that played Dursley in Harry Potter. And I think they're gay. That's about all I know about it. So hopefully something this week. Oh, well, If I Had Legs, I Kick You is definitely on the docket. I don't know if that's the only thing. But who knows? Maybe this time, well, not this time. Later this week, I'll probably be talking about If I Had Legs, I Kick You, and potentially anything else I watch this week. And hopefully I will have that out and about and ready for listening on Saturday. I think that's the goal. See the movie on Thursday, prepare for it and release a short on Friday, record and put out the full episode and review on Saturday. Sounds good. Cool. All right. I think that'll do it for this episode. If you are listening, thank you for listening.